I need some help this morning as we kind of get into it. I wonder if we could go into a Bible story and if you could kind of help me a little bit with this story. Does anybody remember in the New Testament when Jesus' buddy Lazarus, what happened to Lazarus? Where was Lazarus? Grave, tomb, died, dead. Yeah, so Lazarus is in the grave, and everybody's sad about it. And then Jesus takes his time to get there, But I was thinking about Lazarus and his perspective on what's happening, because by now we know that he's been in heaven for 4 days, and you can imagine that Lazarus is kind of up there and he's getting his mansion all together and he's getting all of his stuff there and he's feeling pretty good and he's enjoying the streets that are gold. Maybe he's playing some hoop with the disciples. Oh, wait, the disciples aren't there yet, but maybe he's just kind of playing pickleball with Abraham and Isaac and Sarah and the gang, and he's having a great time while everybody here is back on earth is thinking, where is he at? And I was thinking about Lazarus, and he's up there for 4 days, and he's just loving heaven. And then all of a sudden you get the kind of knock, knock. And Lazarus comes out from his mansion and says, yeah, hey, how can I help you? And the angels come to him and say, look, I apologize for this. This just doesn't happen very often. This is a tough situation. I know you're making house and you're enjoying the streets that are gold and the wonderful food and playing hoop with Abraham, but we're going to need to send you back. And so Lazarus then, has to go back to the hot Mediterranean East and lose his space in heaven for those moments. And I was thinking, you see, sometimes we think that, I miss him or I miss her. They're in a better place. Now, this morning, I want to just start with a couple funny things. And at mic 1 here, I'm just going to ask you, if you're watching online, to chuckle. If you're here in the room, just giggle a little bit if you think any of this is funny. But I think we need to get our laugh back. I think we need to get our joy back in our step a little bit. And so this morning, let me just tell you about three sons that I heard about recently. And these 3 sons were pretty prosperous. They did pretty well. And they had an elderly mother. And so they gifted the elderly mother for her birthday some gifts. One son gave built a big, beautiful house for his mother. Second son gave a fancy, nice car to his mother for his birthday. Third son knew that she was old, hard of seeing, couldn't quite pick up stuff, and she loved the Word of God. She loved the Bible. So he got his mom, for her birthday, a parrot that could recite the entire Bible to her. These were nice gifts: big house, nice car, and a parrot. Well, a couple months go by, and Mom then writes a letter back to her sons. And her first son, Harold, thank you for the big house, but it's just too big. I don't really need this big house. And her second son, Milton, she says to Milton, the car's a little fancy. I don't really need this fancy car. Oh, but my beloved, dear, dear Donald, thank you for the simple and wonderful gift. That chicken was delicious. One-liners. If I got 50 cents for every failed math exam, I'd have $6.30 right now. I went to buy some camo pants, but I couldn't find any. The rotation of Earth really makes my day. I have a few jokes about unemployed people, but none of them work. I didn't make these up. What do mermaids wash their fins with? Tide. Did you hear that Steve Harvey got in a fight with his wife? Yeah, it was a family feud. You know the answers to all these. Did you? My joke writers over here. Thank you for spoiling my punchlines on all these things. Do you go into Starbucks with your own little coffee grounds and say, I'm here to, can I get some sugar to go with my grounds? Oh, you keep your jokes to yourself over there. Come on. I hate Russian dolls. They're so full of themselves. How many know that it's important to get our laugh back? It's important in our life that has had ups and downs, highs and lows, and all arounds, to just be able to laugh and to recapture our joy. And so this morning at Mike's 1, 2, and 3, I'm hoping to help us get some of our laugh back. Now, some of those are ridiculous, but let me tell you some Bible jokes because we're in church. So it goes like this. How do you make holy water? Shh. You boil the hell out of it. I didn't say that all these jokes were going to be good, but my hope is that you're going to laugh a little bit today and that you're going to get that pep back in your step. What's the best way to study the Bible? You look into it. You look into it. Why was Jesus not allowed in the jewelry shops in Jerusalem? Because they were afraid that he was going to break every chain, break every chain. All right. Our current series here at Gateway, if you're new, you're watching online, or you're here for the very first time, is called This Is Us. And we are taking some time this summer to share what's unique about Gateway. Some of the things that we believe, some of the things that we value, core values to us. Things like Jesus is our Savior, our healer, our baptizer, and our soon and coming King. And we talked about each one of those during the summer. And we talked about other things that are unique and differentiate us from other churches. How we're different here on Idlewood than from the other place around the corner or down the street. And there's a lot of great churches. But what's different and unique about Gateway? And so we've taken June, July, and August to be able to articulate some of those things. Our theme for this year, 2022, is the theme of overflow. We've also been kind of looking at ways that God can overflow in our lives in special and wonderful ways. And we're seeing that he does that in a lot of fun ways, a lot of mysterious ways sometimes. And so as we continue in this theme and this series of overflow this year, I thought it would be important for us to look at an encouraging Bible passage today. And some of you are like, finally, he's getting into the Bible. So this morning, if you'd like, you can open your smart devices or turn in your good old-fashioned paperback Bibles and go to the middle of the book with me and land there in Psalm 126. Now, we know there's 150 Psalms that are in the Bible that we have, but scholars would say there's actually more than 150 Psalms. And we're here in the kind of the fifth book of the Psalms. The 150 are broken up into 5 different books. We're in Psalm 126 today. This is a psalm written by David. And I think it's apropos. I think it's timely for the season that we are in as a nation, as a church, and as a group of people. Psalm 126 reads this way. It seemed like a dream, too good to be true, when God returned Zion's exiles. We laughed and we sang, and we couldn't believe our good fortune. We were the talk of the nations. God was wonderful to them, and God was wonderful to us. We are one happy people. And now, God, would you do it again? Bring rains to our drought-stricken lives, so those who planted their crops in despair will shout yes at the harvest. So those who went off with heavy hearts will come home laughing with armloads of blessing. Psalm 126. The context in the backdrop of this passage is that the exiles from Babylon were in captivity for 70 years, and then they are rescued and come back to Jerusalem, back to home, if you will. And if you've been away for 70 years and you've been in captivity, when you experience freedom, something should come out of your life. And for these precious Israelites, these folks, it was laughter and song. Now, the psalm is titled the Song of Ascents. It's the 7th ascent of 15 here in the Psalms. It's about the pilgrims coming back to Jerusalem. It's interesting because it's composed kind of on the heels of their gratitude towards God's restoration plan, that he's bringing them out of captivity back into freedom. And that they're praying for a continuation of this in their lives, that God would continue to work in their lives now that they're free. We see in Psalm 126 that it could be that it was under the exile of Ezra and Nehemiah's time, but some scholars will say that it actually describes David's return from the brief exile from Jerusalem when he was in the coup with Absalom, his son, which was 3 years. And David is the author and the writer of this. Psalm 126 takeaways today. We're in Psalm 126 today. Yes, amen. The parrot is in the room today. Eat that chicken. Psalm 126, I think, is apropos for us as a group of people today. Here, let me have your phone, and I'll just put it up to the microphone. Can we get a young person to help? Can we get somebody technically savvy to help? There we go. Nice. There her hand. Thank you very much. Well, why do you think Psalm 126, which meant a lot for those in the Old Testament, Psalm 126, exiles, Babylon, captivity, 70 years, now free. How does that correlate and how does that synthesize to today in 2022? Let me make a little bit just of a stretch and suggest that we are post-pandemic, if you will, and I know COVID's still on the move and some of us still are watching online because you have fevers or coffee or whatever tough symptoms and things that are happening. But basically, as we come into the post-pandemic season, I'm believing that we are coming out of our captivity. What COVID has done to us as a group of people, specifically, and I'm not making political statements, I'm just saying that COVID has done some things to bind us up, put us into some bondage, and some for safety reasons, some for protection reasons, but it's just nice to kind of get freed up again. Now, I've been traveling with Stacy, and in some places you don't see masks, and then other places you still see masks, but it's just nice to be able to know that we're moving into a new season, and maybe it's because it's summer, maybe the weather's good, that we're kind of coming into a time of, I can laugh again. I can write a song again. I can experience some joy again. Now, Ecclesiastes will say that there's a time for everything. There's a time to mourn, there's a time to grieve, and there's a time for joy and time for laughing. And I would just suggest to us, in the overflow of what God's doing in our life and in our congregation, that we are coming out of some captivity, if you will, and it's nothing like the captivity that the Israelites experienced. So don't send me emails like, well, you can't compare 70 years with the Babylonians' captivity to what we're going through. Of course not. But just symbolically, just to illustrate this, I believe that we're coming out of some captivity, out of some hardship, out of some tough times into a new season. And so prophetically, I'm going to decree and declare that we are in a new season where we hopefully can write some songs. And hopefully we can get our laugh back. That we can bring our laugh back and then we can get the joy again. Psalm 126 says that when they came out of captivity, they experienced some things emotionally, physically. Physically, they were rescued out of this terrible place back to their hometown. That gave them a good mood. And emotionally, they were then full of joy, full of laughter, so much so that they began to write songs, sing songs. Here's some takeaways from this passage this morning in Psalm 126. That, friends, is your freedom contagious? Because I think that our freedom should produce joy. And when we're living in freedom, not as captives, but as ones that are free, we should have a song. We should have a laugh. We should have our humor coming back. It says that we laughed, we sang, we couldn't believe our good fortune. We sang it this morning of his goodness. Could we be reminded of how good God is? Where we live, the freedoms that we have, the experiences that are made available to us, for the meal that we just ate. Last night, this is the perfect picture of summer to me. We had corn on the cob, fresh market corn on the cob. That's not a big deal. For some of you are like, I don't like corn on the cob because it gets stuck in my teeth for 2 weeks. But corn on the cob and we had 2 ears each. I know, that's a splurge. That's the only way I eat vegetables. So we had some good corn. I'm grateful for God's providence, for God's production, for God's gifts and what he makes available to us. And if we can't enjoy an ear of corn, then we're possibly missing the goodness of God and what he provides on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And this summer season, I'm believing that we can come out of kind of this season of captivity back into this season of laughter, season of joy, and that God can recapture our hearts again. Our freedom should produce joy. Secondly, our freedom and our joy should attract others. It should be attractional. How many like hanging out with happy people? Most of us. How many like hanging out with grumpy, angry, bitter, crusty, rough and tough people? Not many of us. Our freedom, our joy should be attractional to others in our lives. Look what happened in Psalm 126. It says, we were the talk of the nations. They come out of captivity. God has done a miracle thing in their life. They come out, they're singing songs, they're laughing, and laughter and enthusiasm should be contagious to where even pre-Christians, non-Christians, heathens, helpless, hurting, begin to see what's going on with them. What do they got? How come they're writing a song? How come they're able to be so joyful? I'm not talking about happy Tigger kind of happy. I'm talking about a joy from within. You know the difference? And these folks who come out of captivity of 70 years are free. And their freedom is being released, and it's being attractional to those around them. Not even fellow believers, but to all people. We were the talk of the nations. Does your freedom and does your joy attract others to Jesus? Some of you think life's just too serious. We don't have time to laugh. We don't have time for this stuff. We got to be joyful and happy and full of enthusiasm in life. Thirdly, our freedom often, though, does come at a cost. So this is the flip side of the coin, because you can just talk about rosy and bright and fun and all the wonderful things about laughter and joy and what our freedom produces. But listen, our freedom often comes at a cost. The people were captive for 70 years. We must catch this. We want to reap the joy without ever having to sow the tears. They sowed tears for 70 years. And then after that, we're able to then reap the joy because of those tears. You see, God never wastes a tear. And in the grieving and the challenges and the mystery of life that we're going through, perhaps you're not in a laughy mood today. But possibly you are sowing tears, sowing grief, sowing stuff to where then it can produce something like laughter, a song, and some joy. Our freedom often comes at a cost. And fourth and finally today, our freedom is sometimes forgotten. This happens in my life. You just take life for granted, and sometimes you just forget it. And we must be reminded of Psalm 126. I think that the people here were reminded, hey, look, we were once slaves. We were once captives for 70 years, for 7 decades. Some of you aren't even old. You're not even 7 decades old. You just think that's a long time. How many are over the age of 70? You don't have to raise your hand. But, that's a significant amount of time. And can you imagine that amount of time in captivity? And then God rescues them out of that, and they need to be reminded of what God did. What did Jehovah do? He rescued them out of it. The psalmist prayed for a mighty, sudden work of God to further the work of restoration among his people. Did you catch it in Psalm 126? And now, God, do it again. Do it again. Bring rains to our drought-stricken lives. So those who planted their crops in despair will shout yes at the harvest. So those who went off with heavy hearts will come home laughing with armloads of blessing. You see, I think that they were rescued out of captivity, and then they started laughing and being joyful and writing songs, and then they kind of went back into a rhythm or a groove, and they forgot of the providence and the blessing and the goodness of God. And so the psalmist is saying, look, could you do that again? Could you help us remember? Could you bring back the laugh? Could you bring back a song? Could you help us to be able to have a little joy again? And I think we just need to be reminded sometimes. And this summer season is a great time to be reminded. And I'm not saying that we're drought-stricken. We have, bring the rains. We're in drought-stricken lives. I mean, we're not in Texas. We have a beautiful place that we live in, and so it's green and it's nice. But what about our drought-stricken lives? When we need to believe that God can reign again, show up again, produce a harvest again in our lives. And that we don't have to wait till the fall for this to happen. That we could believe that he could do it again. Because some of us have heavy hearts. But the psalmist is saying, look, come laughing. Come believing that God can do something about your situation. So freedom produces some stuff. Joy produces some stuff. And I hope today that we can get our life and our laugh back. Some of us are just too serious. Now you say, well, that's just my personality. Okay, well, adjust your personality. Because if we're going to win the world, and if we're going to win people to Jesus, sometimes we can be serious, but we also have to have life and abundance and energy and some excitement. Get excited about something. Get passionate about something. Now, ultimately, I would say, it's best to be excited and passionate about the things of God, things of the Scriptures, things of Jesus. But maybe just start with, I am so excited about my tomatoes that are growing. Right. I mean, let me tell you about my tomatoes. Okay, I don't have tomatoes. Let me tell you about the blueberry patches that we got blueberry bushes right now. They're just so robust. You should come over and you should pick our blueberries. Our blueberries are so delicious. Raspberries, blueberries, tomatoes. Get excited about something. I mean, we have some people that are so good and so excited and so passionate about cornhole. Some of you don't even know what cornhole is. Gateway has a cornhole revolution taking place right now. We've already had 2 tournaments. There's going to be more outreaches this fall. We got some people that are passionate about cornhole. Get excited about something. And if that's throwing a sandbag across into a little hole, fine, get excited about it. Get excited about 34 years of marriage. Get excited about 30 years of marriage, 54 years of marriage. Get passionate about some things that God's doing in your life. All right. You're glad that I'm going to mic 3 because you know that possibly this is getting close to an end. But you don't know that I could return to mic 2 or mic 1. You just turn to your neighbor and just tell him it's okay to laugh. It's okay to laugh. Not that I need to say this, but I just kind of feel like I need to give you permission to get your laugh back. To just discover and find the joy of Jesus again. Because when you have Jesus, you have joy. But some of us have had Jesus a long time, but have missed out on the joy. You see, the package is a combo deal. When you have Jesus, you get joy. Joy, Jesus. Jesus, joy. But we got to exercise that. We got to activate that. Can I just back this up a little bit more with some scripture? I want to fire some scriptures up on the screen because I think laughing and joking and joy is it's a God idea. I think that God laughs. You see in Psalm 2, verse 4, look what happens here. But the one who rules in the heavens, he laughs. So if he models it, if our creator, Papa God, he laughs, we probably could take a play out of his playbook and laugh too. So God laughs. But Jesus wants us to laugh too. Look at John 15. Jesus even says it. I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. Jesus wants us to overflow with joy. He doesn't want us to be stricken with challenges and trials and tribulations all the time. Now, those do produce some things. But Jesus says, I've told you these things. I've given you the good news. I've shared the gospel. I've shared these things so that your life will be filled with joy. Yes, I want your joy to overflow. So he's not talking about just little joy, baby joy, small joy. He's talking about a joy that overflows in your life. What's overflowing in your life? I would contend with us today that joy needs to overflow more in our lives. The book of Proverbs highlights the subject. Look at Proverbs 15. We see that Proverbs 15 says a glad heart makes a happy face. Just turn to the person next to you and just look at them. Just stare into that face for just 22 seconds. And you know if they're glad or sad. You know because of just the smile. You know because of the joy within how they're doing. And I just would submit this to us, church, that we not put on facades, not put on faces, but that from the inside coming out, joy would produce a glad look because we have glad hearts. A glad heart makes a happy face. Are you glad? We got to get glad again. Can we get glad again? All my life you have been faithful. Now, sometimes we forget how faithful he is. We forget how good he is. And we're reminded on a Sunday morning when we sing songs like that. Man, could we just get glad again? Proverbs 15 talks about it. Proverbs 31, I like this one. Here's the Proverbs 31 woman. She is clothed with strength and dignity. And look what she does. She laughs without fear of the future. Does that depict you? Hey, girls, can we just borrow this? Can the guys jump in on this Proverbs 31 thing too? Could this be our calling card for the rest of August and the rest of 2022? We are clothed with strength and dignity because we laugh without fear of the future. Some of us are too fearful about the future. And we need to laugh in the present, laugh in the moment, to embrace the present, live fully in the moment, and not be so worried about the future. But what if? If we could just bring it back to the present living, present tense, and not be so future-minded. Now, some of you money people, you're like, well, we need to plan for the future. Of course we do. There's other great proverbs about that. I'm talking about living with joy now and not having your fear now because of the future rob you now. And some of your kids are watching. I love it. Anna says she's reconciled with her daughter. That's probably because Anna's got a lot of joy. I see Chris and Rhonda's granddaughter who comes back from Bible camp, and she says, I want to know more about Jesus. I want to watch the Passion of the Christ. That's because her mama, her grandma, and her grandpa are passionate about Christ. When you're passionate about Christ, others will get passionate about Christ. And so if you have kids, be passionate about Christ. You have grandkids, be passionate about Christ. Let's laugh without fear of the future. That's probably a good word for one or two. Let me just ask with a show of hands, how many, just that right there, Psalm 31 was a word for you right there today. I'm not going to fear the future. I'm going to laugh without the fear of the future. I'm going to live in the fullness and the presence of right now. Stop being a panicky Pete. Stop being a freak out Fred. Chill down with being just kind of like, I'm so worried all the time. Worry attracts certain things. Joy attracts some things. Are you worrywart and attracting that to you, or are you joyful Jim and attracting that to you? Get your laugh back. Humor lightens our burdens, it inspires hope, it connects us to others, it keeps us grounded, it keeps us focused, it keeps us alert. It also helps you release anger and forgive sooner. See, humor is important because when I drive down the street and I get all at the people that do things, like even on the way to church today, I was like, you just pulled right out in front of me. But because I knew I was going to be talking about laughter and humor and joy, instead of cursing my friend in the brown truck, I blessed my friend in the brown truck. God bless that truck that just almost made me go into a full stop and lose my life. Whiplash. You change your perspective. You pivot. You switch into blessing instead of curses, into quicker forgiveness, into deeper bitterness. And so humor has some things for us to consider, and I just want us to close with this, to ponder this, that seriousness is not a fruit of the Spirit, but joy is. Galatians 5 will back it up. Patience, joy, love, all that wonderful list of fruit. But joy is a fruit of the Spirit, and we have access to that Spirit. So ponder that, but then let's pray. Let's pray and ask for more joy, more jubilation, more genuine laugh out loud moments in our lives. I'm not suggesting that we start laughing at each other, but that we start laughing with each other. And if you got to watch a YouTube video, or you got to go to a comedian's stand-up something, or you got to figure out what that, come to church. Just come to church. You can laugh at me if that helps your soul to be well. I will be the whipping post for just laugh. I'll be the laughing post. Just laugh so that you get just some life and joy back. So ponder, pray, but let's put some stuff into practice. At best, you can today make it a point to be a little less serious. Maybe to breathe more deeply, to smile more unreservedly, to possibly trust more wholeheartedly. And to live into this new paradigm, to take this journey of joy instead of the other journey that you possibly have been on. To get your laugh back. Studies and research have found that children laugh 300 times a day. But adults have gotten so serious that they only laugh 15 to 100 times a day. And what's the difference? Well, kids are naive. Kids don't know the difference, you could say. Kids are silly, or kids are stupid, or whatever you would say. But could we be more kid-like and get our laugh back? Because I don't need to tell you the science of when you laugh, it creates endorphins and dopamine blasts and things that just help your head, help your heart, help your life, help your ulcers, help your spirituality, help your relationships, help your forgiveness, So why don't we do it more often? And on this August morning, I want to encourage us, maybe you just need to hang out with more fun people. I'm not suggesting that you leave the people that you're with. Because some of you I can see like, well, you don't know my husband. He is not fun. All serious all the time. That's fine. You took the vow and you married him, so stay with him, but maybe you invite some other friendly, fun people into your relationships. But I think even more than just making friends with more fun people, this is one of the things I'm learning to do, laugh at myself. Now, studies will say that the older you get, the more gritchy you get, the less humorous you get, and the more kind of crusty that you get. And you stop learning how to laugh at yourself because the aches, the pains, the pills, the stuff that just like makes life hard. But I watch the older people that are living and aging faithfully and aging graciously and gracefully. They have humor. And they've learned to just laugh at yourself. I don't mean in some kind of depredation way, some kind of condemning way, but just in a lighthearted way of just, I remember that it makes me humble. It keeps me humble. That I can't do that anymore. Or I just laugh about stuff that Stacy laughs at me about. And instead of being defensive about it, I just said, yeah, you're right. That is pretty silly. Or that is pretty funny. We got to get a little bit more humorous even with ourselves. Like it's okay, young people, older people, to just find the laugh again. Knock, knock. A broken pencil. Never mind, it's pointless. Knock, knock. Cash. Cash who? No thanks, I'll have some peanuts. Don't worry, I'm not going to Gallagher this situation. Why are watermelons the saddest fruit? Because they're melancholic. What do you call a dog that herds watermelons? A melancholy. That was just for Stacy right there. That was. All right, what did the watermelon say to the honeydew when it proposed? Sorry, I can't elope. Oh! I don't mean to be silly or corny, but I just think we should probably laugh a little bit more And today, if you're here for the very first time, we want to make sure you get a watermelon. So they're in the back, and our staff and our team will have those available to you if you're here for the very first time. We're grateful that you're watching. We're grateful that you're listening. We're grateful that you're leaning into this is us. And some of you today are like, that was nice, but that was my last time ever to Gateway. This was an experiment, the 3 mics. We'll probably never do it again. But we're just trying to be creative and to let you know that we want to be a group of people that loves Jesus and knows him personally.
Yep.
We want to grow with Jesus purposefully so we can go passionately.
Yeah.
But we want to do all that with pep in our step,
Amen.
with joy in our hearts, with gladness on our face.
Yeah.
And we want to be a people that learn how to laugh a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And I'll see you at family camp in a couple weeks where we're going to have a lot of laughter. Would you stand to your feet?